people are chasing me. In essence, I want to become a person of interest, which is why I wrote this book. Now, when you become a person of interest, networking becomes easy. And you know why? Because there's a long line of people that want to spend time with you. You don't have to go chase. You don't have to try to convince. You don't have to beg. You don't have to manipulate. You understand what I'm saying? You just have a bunch of people who want to spend time with you because you are a person of interest, right? Is that not what we all should aspire to be in our lifetime? Yes or no?
Yes.
Because that statement I made as a young entrepreneur was that I want to build a business that is so attractive, that is so interesting and dynamic. A, there's lots of people who want to work with me, right? Lots of people who want to come work with me on my team. And B, when I go places, my status is high because status sells. Everybody agree with that? And so how do you become one of these people of interest? Because if you're looking at going to networking events, the most coveted position at a networking event is the one in front of the group. Because you're the person of interest. You have the microphone. You have the ingredients. Okay? You have something that other people want. So when you think about a person of interest, I want you to take a step right now and I want you to think about one person in your market that you know that absolutely kind of dominates their market. That person may be you. But typically, when I say name one person that is the person of interest in your space, I bet every person in this room has a person in their mind. Yes or no?
Yes.
You may or may not like those people. A lot of times I'll say, oh, it's so-and-so, and I can't stand them. But they're doing 10 times the amount I'm doing. They're doing something, right? So I'm going to show you how to become one of these today. Okay? I'm going to go inside the mind of a monster producer. I started off as a head women's basketball coach at a place called Riverdale High School. Because the biggest question I get asked everywhere I go is, how did you make this transition from a high school basketball coach to starting and building a multi-million-dollar coaching business and writing books and traveling all over the country? And people are always so curious about that. And I think they're curious because in some way in their life, they're trying to make a transition. And that transition is from here to here. Everybody with me? Many people will never have the guts to walk in one day at the top of their game and quit what they're currently doing because they feel a bigger calling to do something bigger than that. And that's exactly what happened to me. I started coaching very early in life, 15 years old. By 18 years old, I was coaching at elementary school. They paid me a whopping $199.50 for the year. Okay? Now you know you love doing something when you do it for $199.50, yes or no? But I learned something at $199.50. Every day your current job is an interview for your next job. How many of you believe that?
Yes.
Every day with your current customer is an interview for your next customer. So I coached that team as if I was coaching in the NBA. Okay? You want to expand your territory, be really good with the territory you already have. Somebody asked me this morning, you were asking me this morning, how do I grow something from small to big? I started my coaching programs with 4 to 6 people. And I just got those 4 to 6 people to such a better place in their life that they brought me. Next thing I looked up and there was 20 people. And then there were 40 people. And now there's over 600 people. You understand what I'm saying? Start small. Everything big started small. Make the big time where you are, no matter where you're at today. And so I coached that little team as if I was in the NBA. I wore a suit. I mean, I looked like a little Pat Riley coaching basketball, right? And I rolled in, man, and I coached that team, and I planned for hours, and I was going to college. And sure enough, at 19 years old, I get a phone call from Riverdale High School in Murfreesboro, and it's the second largest high school in Tennessee at that time. He said, look, I've heard about you. Is that a referral, yes or no?
Yes.
The person says, look, I've heard about you. He said, man, I heard you're this young little whippersnapper that can flat out coach. Will you come down to Riverdale and be one of my assistant coaches? And I said, I asked what any good 19-year-old would ask, which is what? I'm like, well, I just got one question to ask you. How much are you going to pay me to come down there? And I'm embarrassed to say I actually said these words. I said, I'm already making $199.50. I don't really even know if you can afford me down there at Riverdale. You know what I'm saying? And this guy was 50 years old, and he laughed, and he said, look, kid, we're going to pay you $2,000. Because one of the things I want to talk to you about today is as you become a bigger person of interest, you can 10x your income. How many of you have 10 times your income in your business before? Was going from $199 to $2,000 10x of my income, yes or no?
Yes.
Yeah, I remember when I made $30,000 a year, and I went to $300,000. When I went to $300,000 to $3 million. Understand what I'm saying? But you've done this multiple times already. When you went from 0 to here, you've already done it, so you can do it again. That's what you got to understand, right? So every day my current role is an interview for my next role. And I'm like, I want to be a head coach. I want to be the person of interest. So I said behind every great number 1 is a great number 2. So I begin to be a great number 2 to this head coach, and I would do anything. Some people want to climb up the ladder, but they're not willing to do the things necessary to get there. It's like, well, I'm above that. I can't do this. I can't do that. Where's my 2 kids in high school right now? You need to hear this. Because I got a 5-year-old daughter, and I'm teaching her this every day. You understand what I'm saying? Listen, there was no job that I wouldn't do. You mean babysit your kids? I can do it. You mean drive the bus? I can do it. You mean clean the floor? I can do it. You mean clean the locker room? I can do it. Every day of my current job was an interview for what? My next job. And I wanted to be the head coach. So I became a great number 2. And behind every great number 1 is a great number 2. How many of y'all agree with that?
Yes.
How many of you have a great number 2? If you don't, you need to get one. This is the person behind the curtain. This is the person that don't get a lot of credit but does a lot of work. Okay? That's me. Back there grinding. So at 21 years old, I'm going to college. Now this is important to starting early. So I'm already coaching. I'm going to college every morning. I'm leaving college. I'm going to my job at Riverdale. And I made a couple rules. I will never leave until the head coach leaves. He stays at 8 o'clock. I stay at 8:15. I stayed at 9 o'clock. I stayed at 9. He stayed at 9 o'clock. I stayed at 9:15. Now, people at the end of the day say, look, I'm out of here. Good luck. Here's what I would do. Out of respect for him, I'd go to him and say, sir, is it okay if I leave? Or would you like for me to stay around a little bit longer? And many times he would go, yeah, you can go ahead and go, coach. But one of my rules is I didn't leave before he left. Because I was assisting him. Okay? And I didn't feel like it was appropriate for me to leave when I was assisting him. So pretty soon I climbed up his ladder. Now I'm his number 1 guy. He retires. He said, I will not retire unless one guy replaces me, which is this little cat right here, Coach Burt. And I get this big job at 22 years old. Now I'm in charge of the 2nd biggest program in Tennessee, and I'm 22 years old. Now, I start deciding early in life, I'm going to be a person of interest. I'm going to impact the world. I'm going to do something big. I got big dreams. I'm going to win a championship here. I'm going to do something that's never been done. And so people say, well, how did you do it? I started teaching the players things other people were not teaching. I started teaching them 7 habits of highly effective people, principles of good to great, 5 dysfunctions of teams, 5 disciplines of a learning organization. Now imagine your daughter playing for me at 14, 15, 16 years old. What kind of little training machine that I'm making? And I'm spending 5.5 hours a day with those kids. And they're smarter and they're more connected. And what happened is we begin to win games. And we begin to win a lot of games. People started asking me, what, Donald, what are you doing with those kids? And I said, I don't have time to tell you because I'm trying to win championships. Why don't I just write it down in a book and you can buy the book? How many of you have a book in you that you're supposed to write? Raise your hand. You know how many hands should have gone up? All of them. Every person in this room has a book in them that they should write. You know why? Because if life's worth living, it's worth writing down. Even if you write it for one person, your kids, your family, your friends. So I sat down at 25 years old on the beach in Destin, Florida, and I wrote a book called Changing Lives Through Coaching because I believe a good coach can change your whole life. I write that book, and I write it for coaches because there was no manual for me from 19 to 25, but coaches didn't buy it. You know how depressed I was when I wrote a book for coaches, but no coaches would buy it? But guess who did buy it? Business people. Business people started buying my book. And they started going, hey, will you come over and speak to our people because they need a good coach in their life? And what they really said was this. This was so ironic. Moms and dads would drop their daughters off to me at 14 years old. They all said the same thing. Coach, my daughter's got a lot of potential. Every now and then they said issues. They were right about that too. They said, Coach, my daughter's got a whole lot of potential. She just needs something. What do you think they said she needed? Guidance, structure, focus, accountability. One of the number 1 things they said she needed was confidence. And I would say to the moms and dads, I'm going to ask you a question, but you ain't going to like it. Is your daughter watching you reach your potential? Now, it's one thing for me to tell my daughter, who's 6 years old, to go push and strive and dream and exert. You understand what I'm saying? It's a whole other thing for her to watch her daddy do it. And her to see me get up every morning and go get it. And her to see me dream big. And her to see me take her all over the world. Her to see me reaching my own potential. And the parents didn't like that. You know why they didn't like me asking that question? Because they knew they weren't reaching their potential. Potential's not age specific. I've coached a 71-year-old songwriter before. Calls me out of the blue. More ASCAP awards than any other songwriter. And he called me at 71 years old. Here's what he said: I still got one more good swing in me. Will you coach me? I want you to think about that. That's inspiring, yes? Because a lot of people get to an age and say, well, I'm kind of past it. People come up to me and say, this was good, coach, but I really need my kids to hear it. Or I love this one. My kid's 25 years old. They're still at home sleeping at noon, and they're eating Cheetos. Which book of yours will change their life? And I'm like, well, I don't know which one will change their life, but I got one I can sell you, okay? They need this ain't no practice life. So 25 years old, I started speaking and I started coaching. Now, it's very important to the story of person of interest. If you're going to become one of these, a person of interest, you have got to have what I call an initial hard skill. And a hard skill is you can fix something, you can solve a problem, you can bring immediate value to something. I look at a lot of adults and I'm like, I can't figure out what your hard skill is. I want you to think of this. Your hard skill is a talent. I believe talent is God-given, not man-given. I can teach you skills, but I can't give you talent. You follow me? Yep. A hard skill is I have a talent that solves somebody's problem. Money changes hands when problems are solved. My talent solves their problem. Now, at that time, the problem I was solving was trying to win a championship at a place that had never won one, and they compensated me roughly $50,000 to $60,000 a year to solve that problem. And by the way, as a public high school teacher, I was one of the highest paid coaches in Tennessee at $60,000. Okay? That's depressing. Because I worked 80 hours a week every week for that $60,000. Everybody understand what I'm saying? So what's the hard skill? My hard skill was taking a person of low thought of value and bringing them to a high thought of value. Taking a person through an ongoing process, getting them to a much higher performance. My hard skill was taking people from different walks of life, putting them into one team and winning with them. That's a hard skill that people will pay for. Everybody understand? If I could take your team right now, or you would get you a 40 or 50% increase, would that be valuable to you, yes or no?
Yes.
If I could take you in a year and help you make a couple $100,000 more dollars, maybe even a couple million more dollars, you wouldn't have a problem giving me a little piece of it, would you? I say, just give me a little piece for my niece. Right? As Brad Lee said, just a little sliver for me to deliver for you. That's all I need. Okay? But my point is this. I'm developing this hard skill over here. And the hard skill is taking these people from here to there. I want you to think right now what your hard skill is. But I was being compensated at a low amount for my skill. Then I go speak at Dell Computers one day, and I'm speaking to these small business owners, and I'm having fun. I'm coaching from my books. I get finished. I'm like, thank you guys very much. Got to go back to my team. And the guy says to me, will you come back? And I'm like, no, I'm not interested. Coaching my team, trying to win. I love coaching kids. I have no intention of coaching adults whatsoever, because they're just big kids, by the way, right? And he said, are you sure? We want you to come back. And I said, no, I'm not interested. Thank you for the invite. I'm not trying to be rude, but I'm trying to win a championship here, and I ain't got time to fool with this, right? Thank you for buying my book. I'm moving on. And he said, okay, if you insist. He reached in his pocket and he pulled out a check. And he said, this is your check for speaking to us today. And I'm like, you gonna pay me to coach these folks? He said, yeah, man, but this is Dell Computers, one of the biggest companies in the world. And I opened that check, and it was more than an hour than I made in a whole month of coaching. And I looked at it. What do you think I said then? So, man, I'll come back every 15 minutes. You need to come back. I'll motivate the night crew, whatever. But I walked out of there, and here's the revelation I had. I talked about this at 10X when I spoke on the main stage. The revelation I had was there's someone who would pay me 10 times the amount of money I was making than what I was currently earning for my hard skill. Everybody see that? In an hour, I made more than I made in a month. 80 hours of working like crazy over here. We used to work 8 hours a day on Sunday. I would get up and go to church and go to my office and watch film for 8 hours. That was my life for 10 years. No matter how much I won, they didn't pay me any more money. No matter how good we were. Then I go over here in an hour, and I had this revelation. Now, here's the cycle of becoming a person of interest. Okay? If you write anything down, I want you to remember this one. Number one, you got to have, there's a big revelation that you have. Revelation is an aha moment. It's like enlightenment. Shine light on darkness. Okay? I've had a huge revelation. My revelation is I have a skill that people will pay me a lot more money for in a different arena. But it's the same skill. You follow what I'm saying? after that revelation, I had conviction. Because of my revelation, I now got conviction. And conviction is this deep-seated belief in myself and my ability to help people get to another level. That's what you sense in me. A lot of people call it passion. A lot of people ask me about my energy. Where do you get your energy from? Where do you get your passion from? And I tell them, my energy and my passion comes from my conviction in what I believe and how strong I believe it. Okay? And I'm not lukewarm toward my beliefs. I say, this is what I believe. This is why I believe it. This is what I do. This is how I do it different. And you either see it or you don't. You follow what I'm saying? Because of my conviction, I'm now willing to take a lot of action. Everybody see that cycle? I've had revelation. I now have conviction. I am now taking action. If you have not had a revelation and you do not have the conviction, what do? You take a little bitty action. You solve little bitty problems. You get compensated in little bitty ways. Money changes hands when problems are solved. The bigger the problem, the more money people pay to solve it. Everybody with me on this? But you can't ever get to the blue marlins if you're fishing for blue gills. Right, Jason? Okay? So you wake up every day. So I wake up and I try to solve big, juicy problems for people. I'm talking about a company that says I want to go from making $1 billion a year to $3 billion a year. I got a team of 5 people, and I want to go from a baby star to a big star. I want to start something new. I want to do something big. I go out into the marketplace and I look for problems. And how many people have problems? We live in a state of confusion. You know what confusion is? A problem that has no clear solution to it. So people come to me and say, what should I do? Where should I go? Who should I call? What should I say? How should I follow up? How should I do this? And I say, look, I can help you. I can help eliminate any confusion you got. So when you wake up every day, there's crystal clarity about what you should do. So how many of you can honestly say you've had the revelation, now you got the conviction, now you're taking action? How many people can say they've gone through that cycle? Because if you've not gone through that cycle, you're lukewarm. And if you're lukewarm, here's your problem. It's going to be very hard to be a person of interest if you got lukewarm beliefs about what it is you believe and what you stand for. Okay? This is very clear. I line up with people who have very strong beliefs, maybe even polarizing. They're not in the middle. It's like, this is it. When I interview big time people, when I spend time with big time people, when I do retreats, they are very clear. Here's what we believe. Here's why we believe it. Here's what we do. Here's how we do it different. Here's everybody we've done it for. If we could do this for you, what would stop us from moving forward with each other? Okay? So I've got a hard skill, and I want you to think about how many of you know what your hard skill is? Now, let me tell you something. Most adults don't. So if you don't know this, like I'm looking at a lot of people, and I'm like, man, what do you bring here? What problem do you solve? What is your hard skill that someone would compensate you at the highest levels for? Okay, you take a guy like Nick Saban, they pay him $32 million. People in Alabama complain about it, they say he's overpaid. In the first year, they make $95 million. They paid for all 8 years of his contract in the first year with $95 million that they brought in as a result of hiring him. You think that's a good hire, yes or no?
Yes.
What's his hard skill? Winning championships. He could take that hard skill anywhere to any program and say, this is what I do. Would you like me to be your coach? And here's how much it's going to cost. Now, when he used to do interviews, what he would do when they would interview him is he would take a yellow notepad. Let me borrow this just for a second. He would take a yellow notepad and make pages and pages of notes about everything he was going to do to improve that program. You need to be doing this for your clients, by the way. A lot of times I'll pull out a yellow notepad, take Jonathan Frost, and I'll say, here's the 7 ways that I can help him. And I just sit around and meditate on how I can help my clients get to a better place with a yellow notepad. And I'll show up at a meeting and I'll go, look, Jonathan, there's 7 areas I can help you go from here to here to here. Okay? Well, Saban would show up at these interviews with a yellow notepad. And he showed up at LSU, and here's what they told each other before the interview. We're not going to offer him the job. We're just going to talk to him. That's the board of directors. He gets in a room, 12 people, brings his yellow notepad. Here's why you're not recruiting like you should. Here's why you can't get attendance. Here's why you can't win championships. About a few minutes into the meeting, one of the board members said, Nick, we'd like you to be our football coach. And he said, and he says, look, we were going to offer $1.8 million. We'll give you $2 million if you'll say yes right now. because he was so impressive in the interview because of what he did. That's a hard skill. A hard skill is looking at something, going this. You say, so what is a hard skill? The ability to connect to anybody, anywhere, anytime. That's a hard skill. The ability to sell at a very high level is a hard skill. The ability to solve a problem. Let's say your specialty was taking people from baby stars to big stars. And that's what you do. Okay? What is a person willing to pay for that? Right? So what is your hard skill? Because the leverage I've created in my life was first created because of my first hard skill. And that hard skill was coaching. Everybody with me? Now, how did I translate that into the next phase of my life? So I go out, as I'm coaching, I start to go out and I start speaking. And people began to ask me to speak because Lou Holtz was speaking, Mike Krzyzewski was speaking, these coaches were going around the world speaking, and I'm like, man, I can go out and do this. How many of you have ever looked at another person and said, I can do that? Right? You know the difference between an amateur and a professional? The amateur says, oh, I can do that. What does a professional do?
Do it.
Goes and does it. They don't talk about writing books, they write the books. They don't talk about going and speaking. People ask me all the time, where can I go speak at? There's Rotary clubs every day looking for speakers. I don't even know if all the people in there are alive. Some of them I think are dead. They still show up. They come for the chicken versus the message. You understand what I'm saying? Do you know how many of those I spoke at when I first started? For free? Nothing. I'm talking hundreds. Free speaking engagements while I'm coaching my team. Finally somebody said, hey, will you come over and work with me? And I'm like, how much would it cost me for you to come work with my team? And I said $350 for 3 hours. They said, okay. And I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm going to make $100 an hour. This is crazy. There's times now we may charge $20,000 for that same hour. You understand what I'm saying? Think of the multiples here. So I go in and I start coaching. 31 years old, I walk in and I retire after I win a championship from Riverdale for one reason. And I want to speak to some of you specifically. Some of you in this room, what you're doing is too small, and you know it's too small, and there's something in you telling you to play at a much bigger level, but you're afraid of something. You're afraid to go play at a higher level. You're afraid to walk away from something good to have something great. I walked in at the peak of my career, 31 years old, and said, I'm out. I had insurance, I had benefits, I had reputation, and I completely walked away from that to start something new. I transitioned into the coaching. And I have no clients. I don't know where the money's going to come from, and I started in the middle of the recession. That's how naive I was. But guess what I learned? People would pay more money in the recession because of the pain they were in than what they'll pay today. The biggest contracts I ever signed in my coaching career were right in the middle of the recession. When most people say we're cutting training out, the big time people say we need to double down on training. We need to spend more money coaching our people because we can't do this. So I started this coaching business. Now I'm starting to figure this out. Now I'm starting to go, okay, how do we take our skill set, our hard skill, to a higher level? And people begin to ask me, can I be coached by you individually? And I said, well, I really don't have an individual coaching program. All I do is coaching companies. I need an individual coaching program. So I started Monster Producer. And it started with 4 to 6 to 8 people. And that same program today has 600 people in it. And they're literally all over the world. I mean, literally in other countries, they're being coached. Now, I'm coaching these monster producers, and I'm adding 30 people a month. Now, I want you to think about this. I want you to imagine adding, if you're a small business, 30 to 50 new clients a month. Most financial advisors, you know how many clients they add a year? How many? Yeah, that's good ones. I know financial advisors that add 3 or 4 a quarter, 12 a year. Imagine adding 50 a month, every month. When I spoke at 10X in Vegas, those 10,000 people, 167 new clients in an hour. In an hour, right? And if I spoke on day 3, everybody spent all their money by the time they got to me. What if I spoke on day 1 and I signed up 300 clients? So that taught me a very valuable lesson. Here's the law of diffusion and innovation. It says this: for every 30 people you share your message with, there's